Jazzcast Pros.
If you have ever wondered what it means to go on a healing journey, or if you're contemplating going on a healing journey, today's episode is one for you. We are speaking with the one and only Lauren of Love. She is a spiritual mentor and self-healing teacher for women who are on the path to personal transformation. Whether you are healing chronic illness, repairing your mental health, discovering your purpose, rewriting your past traumas, or awakening to more prosperity, she wants you to know that this is your path and you can transform any area of your life. Hello, beautiful, and welcome.
I feel so honored by where did you get that bio? I'm like, I need a copy of that.
Welcome to Healing Her Within, the podcast for women who are ready to break free, rise up, and reclaim every part of themselves. I'm your host, Maryann Rivera-Dannert, certified life and confidence coach, author, speaker, and a woman who's walked through the fire and came out fearless.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I feel really touched. Thank you so much for having me. I feel really blessed to be able to come into anybody else's community and share and connect with the women who listen, the family who listens, and our dynamic as well just makes it feel even more special to me. So I just want to honor that and say I'm so grateful to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's dive in. You identify as a self-healing teacher, a plant medicine facilitator, and a spiritual guide. Which of these roles emerged first, and how did they all come to work together?
Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm already getting so excited for this conversation. You've set the foundation, Mama. Yeah, that's a good question. So I think that what came before all of that was the journey of really waking up to how I was really wanting to heal my life and just really seeing how I had relied on and hoped that all these things outside of me would help me, whether that was the pharmaceutical industry or the medical industry or, getting support from family or friends or the success I wanted to create. It was always so outside of me. And I think that came first, was really wanting to heal myself, Being a plant medicine facilitator is something that was birthed through my journey, very universally guided. It wasn't something I wanted. It wasn't something I was seeking. And the ability to share and teach people how to heal themselves, I think for me is just really a karmic gift of being able to give back to kind of the old version of me who didn't know how to do that. So many women in their lives feel like somebody has to rescue them. And that was me for a long time. So I wanted to be able to share and give that back. And so that came before the plant medicine, but it's all connected, as you know. I'm sure we'll talk about it. Yeah.
I love that. So given your background with plant medicine, how do you incorporate those practices into your coaching, and what safety and ritual frameworks do you emphasize?
Yeah. So to start, I think it's really important to understand what self-healing is, right? And I think this is a very generalized term that could be very interpreted in many different directions by many different people. To me, self-healing is really the reclamation process of coming back to a place within yourself where you believe you have the power to change your reality, right? When we are really disempowered and we are navigating things, like for me, it was being very overweight and being very chronically ill and navigating mental health challenges, like you mentioned, right? Or even financial dis-ease, right? Which I believe financial dis-ease is a thing. All of those things, all those symptoms are really at the root cause, underneath all of it is not feeling whole and empowered within yourself, right? And so plant medicine, which is also a very generalized term and expression, is a way in which we can start to rely on earth-based principles and earth-based practices to bring us to our power and bring us back to our center. And that is a very broad term. So that can mean hey, you're going to sit at home and you're going to drink rose tea every morning and you're going to learn how to embrace your feminine, or you're really anxious. So we're going to go into a 30-day diet studying chamomile and learn the spirit of relaxation, right? Every plant on this earth has a divine code of medicine for us. And so while some people think plant medicine is just that kind of psychedelic category,
Right.
it's really important to know it's many different things. And on that principle of safety, I think it's really important, just like in the journey of healing ourselves, that we have radical autonomy as humans and we're able to say, hey, that is for me and I want to explore that, or that isn't for me and I don't want to explore that. And ultimately, my job is to create a safe container in guiding people with my education, but allowing them to really decide what feels best for them.
I love that. And I'm definitely going to have to tap in and just check out rose tea because I've never had rose tea before.
Girl, let
Yeah.
me tell you, I did a rose diet. So dieting at home, just like a piece of this is like you keep a really clean diet at home for a certain period of time, and you drink rose tea in the morning and the night, and you study the frequency of the feminine rose, and you learn about how it shows up in your life. And that's the thing with these plants, like they integrate into our reality and teach us so much. And so rose is a really good entry. I highly suggest that for sure.
I love that. That's awesome. So you healed chronic illness, obesity, and Lyme disease through your HEAL program. So what was the pivotal moment or a practice in that journey? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I firmly believe, and this is something I teach in the HEAL program, the symptoms that manifest as dysfunction in our reality, generally speaking, never really manifest in one area. You know, I think that when we're waking up to needing to make changes in our life, it's because there's a lot happening at once. And that was what was moving through me. My body was very inflamed. I had Lyme disease. I was also struggling with a lot of mental health challenges. And I was struggling with obesity as well. And what I like to tell people and remind people of is that a lot of the 3D world is conditioned based on this belief of fixing symptoms. You know, when you are somebody who's very overweight like I was, and you're being told, oh, just change your diet and exercise. But if the symptom of if that's a symptom and what's at cause for your overeating and your lack of movement is sexual trauma or your inability to feel connected to your vessel because of any type of trauma, no matter how much you're told what to do, it's going to create a resistance in your field. So for me, it was about kind of looking beyond all of that to be like, okay, yes, a tick bit me and I have this bacterial infection. And yes, I overeat and I have this problem. And yes, my mental health challenges are bad and I'm on Instagram and social media scrolling and numbing myself, right? But like, what's at cause underneath that? And that was when I really recognized that I had this kind of severed relationship with myself where I didn't feel whole. I didn't feel worthy. And a lot of these coping behaviors were actually there because I was trying to keep myself safe and protected. So yeah, what was at cause was really all of my trauma history for sure. And getting to the core of that through plant medicine and through inner work, shadow work, teenager work, I was able to really rewire a lot of that. And that's also too, you know, just something to note on this. There's a lot of misconceptions about this healing journey. And we tend to think it's like, oh, I'll have this miracle and then all of a sudden everything will change. But really, actually, once you start doing this inner work, that's when the angels come and like the opportunities of support, the diet that you've been craving to find that's just really supportive suddenly manifests. The solutions to your physical ailments just show up. The allies, the teachers, everything starts to appear because you're really uniting with that internal dynamic of self to self. So as within, so without. And the without is also important, right? There were many physical changes I made to get where I am today too. So
I love that. What would you say was one of the first change that you made in your journey?
oh, wow. Oof. So the first change I think I made, the first thing that comes to mind is like disappointing my parents, which I know is like kind of funny. I realized, you know, to wake up to my own truth, I had to really recognize that I was a people pleaser. I had to really identify like, whoa, I'm living for everybody else. I'm making choices because I'm afraid to disappoint my parents. I'm not living in my truth. That was huge for me. Right. So that, I think that of like the first thing I did was like radically recognize that within myself and start to shift to make choices that I wanted to make.
I love that. In your healing program, you teach 12 steps. What would you say, what's the most underestimated step that you find women skip over? And why is that step so critical?
The inner teenager. Okay. Yeah, let's talk about this. So the 12-step healing process is in the HEAL program, and it's a doozy. Okay. Like it's a big study. If you're going to go into the HEAL program, it's 12 weeks of deep work. But the way that structure was created was actually birthed through my journey and what I walked through to rewire my dynamic with self. And the inner teenager was one of those things that nobody ever talked about. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, oh, inner teenager work, shadow work, mother-child wounds, father-child wounds. Where is your teenager, girl? You know, and the teenager is so important because during that time, especially as a woman, that's when your creation energy is coming online. That's when your decision-making faculties are starting to get stronger. That's where your goddess is like starting to ignite. And that's often where we experience the most elements of suppression, right? We're taught like, don't be a sexual, you're not supposed to be. And hey, like, you got to get a job and start thinking about college. Forget all those passions you have, you know? So that's where we really abandon ourselves. And the inner teenager in the HEAL program is such a wild phase of the study because it's really about claiming these parts of us that we have been told are so wrong. The wild one, the reckless one. You know, I think a lot of women, when they're going through the HEAL program, they carry a lot of shame around their teenager. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe I behaved that way. Or like, I did those things. I'm so embarrassed. But actually, your teenager is brilliant. She just needs to know how to walk in a good way. And if we can really integrate her into our life, that is where there's such potential for joy and creativity to be expressed. So I love the inner teenager. I'm in a personal healing phase of my inner teenager too. And it's a doozy, but it's beautiful. And yeah, it's definitely underrated.
You know, and I love that. And it's not interesting, but it's just more confirmation and more alignment that you say it's the inner teenager, because I've always focused on healing my inner child. Everything is my inner child, my inner child. And a group of ladies that are part of the podcast network that I'm in, they are in Australia, the two psychic nobodies. We did a card reading and they asked me what my intention was. And I remember saying that I wanted to check on little Maryann and teenage Maryann in my future self, just to see if I'm in the right path for my future, and just to check on little, Maryann, my inner child, to see how they are doing, if they're safe, if they're okay. I'm getting goosebumps. And they said that my inner child, she's perfectly fine. My inner teen is the one that's jacked up.
Yeah.
And is the one that needs love and things like that. And the inner child is kind of like a little frustrated because she has had to take care of the inner teen. And I was like,
know that.
I never really thought about my inner teen. So I love that, you talked about that's the one step that is more often than not, skipped over, and the reasons why. So I love that. So I definitely have to, for myself, have to start doing some more work with my inner teen and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, it's the part of us that we're kind of like afraid to touch too, because I feel like, that's when we experience our first heartbreaks, and that's where we let men mistreat us. And there's so much in those layers of our life experience, but also reclaiming that is really freaking cool. When you get to actually bring her back home and have her operate in your field, it's truly amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited. So on Instagram, you say that strategy is the last thing that you depend on. How do you define strategy, and what takes precedence in your process?
That's a really good question. Are you speaking about this as an entrepreneur or as a healer and a healing, self-healing experience? Because those are, I could take it anywhere.
Let's do both.
Sure. Yeah. So strategy is the last thing I depend on because strategies change. All right. They change. The number one constant is your heart. The number one constant is prayer. The number one constant is spirit, source, universe. And no matter what game you're playing, this attachment to the idea that we know what strategy is going to get us there is really ridiculous. If I look at my life, everything I've created in the Lauren of Love brand, or even just in my healing journey, not only do I laugh and I'm like, I can't make this shit up. Like the way that this is all unfolded, like it's just so, it's magical, it's mystical, it's creatrix, it's God, it's so much element of unpredictability. Like, and so I think strategy, when I look at strategy, because strategy is a masculine frequency, okay? It's like, what's your game plan? What's the structure? What are the steps, right? That's strategy. And I think I define it as that in its simplest sense. But when I look at those pieces, what I'm also really aware of is that if I was attached to what I thought those strategies were supposed to be for growing my business or for healing myself 5 years ago, I would not be here. I wouldn't be here. So it's like we have to kind of be open to the idea that we don't know what we don't know. And if we can maybe simplify our approach to say it's not about finding the perfect steps, but rather listening to what step leads you to the next step, leads you to the next step, and just kind of trusting that divine unfolding, walking a life in a guided perspective is what actually gets you where you want to go. So I think that's why I say that. And ultimately, it's really about recognizing that you can't strategize your way to shit. You really can't. It's going to be a divine process. Yeah.
I love that. So in your bio, well, the last time I checked, it says where spirit leads and wealth follows. Can you share a turning point where you chose spirit over money and what unfolded?
Yeah. Oh, this is beautiful. So I feel like I've been consciously making that choice over and over again in my life because money has such an attachment to us and we have such an attachment to it. Yeah. So we tend to make choices based on what financially makes the most sense, even when it doesn't actually feel good to us. And that can lead to a state of a lot of disempowerment in our life. And so for me, I think the really big turning point was in 2019 where I really said, I don't care how much money I'm making right now. I'm going to stop my business because I need to actually take care of myself. And that's what's alive for me. And that's what's important. And I put my needs ahead of what financially made sense, and that has continued to happen over the course of my life where like, look, if I had a marketing expert come into my business and try to teach me what I'm doing wrong, oh man, she'll tell me a million different things, and if I can listen and I can make a hell of a lot more money, but I don't want to do that. I want to be myself and I want to create what I want to create and I want to talk about what I want to talk about and I want to speak in my truth. And that is not about strategy. That's about freedom. And when you start to create your business, you'll notice there are things that will financially work. And sometimes there are things that will make no sense, but will financially work, and you have to trust, you have to listen to what your soul is really calling you to do. So that was a really big turning point for me. And I remember designing courses at the time that really didn't make logical sense to what my community was wanting for me. And I just kind of knew this is what I'm really meant to create. And following that led to more abundance than I could have ever comprehended back then too.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you said, to trust yourself. And I think that that's something that women more than men, I would say, probably struggle with is trusting themselves and trusting their intuition.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's like, and we could talk about that for hours. Like, where did you learn that? We as women are taught to not listen to our bodies. and to really shut that off. I remember like even being younger, this is like inner teenager reference, right? But when I first got my period, I remember being like, oh, I got to hide that, right? In school, nobody can know. And when I started working jobs, I had to make sure that I still showed up and I still gave it all. And I showed up just like I did every other day. You know, it's like the body was so rejected. And yet at the same time, that's where the intuition lives. So a lot of this reclamation of teenager work we're talking about too is like kind of coming back to that knowing as well, that the body really does have all the information we need.
Yes. Yes, it definitely does. So your wild, wealthy, and feminine method blends entrepreneurship with feminine energy. What would you say are some unique energetic shifts that support women in scaling their work?
Yeah, good question. I think that when we are entrepreneurs, one of the first things we are looking for are the strategies and are the steps, right? Somebody tell me, like, how am I supposed to build my business? And what are the action plan steps I'm supposed to take? I think one of the biggest things that allows women to scale is kind of stepping out of that paradigm and into a place of really asking, what does the business I want to build look like? And when I say that, it's not what is out there and how do other people build it, or like what am I taught I'm supposed to build and how am I supposed to build it because somebody else said so. What do I want to build, you know? And that radical connection to your truth, I think that's where things really start to change. I work in the Conscious Creator Mastermind specifically with a lot of entrepreneurs who have been very conditioned to think, oh, I got to build it this way. But like they don't want to build it that way and they don't like that type of build. So reclaiming that, I think a big thing too is reclaiming your authentic truth and your voice and developing a safe space to express your voice, because a lot of women are trying to talk in their businesses in this certain way they've been conditioned to think is professional or legit, when really they just want to be themselves. And so that's a really big aspect that can allow us to scale. And I think the final piece is boundaries, you know, knowing as a woman how to create boundaries and say no, because scaling needs to feel sustainable and having no boundaries just doesn't feel sustainable. So we have to listen to our bodies and build business with good boundaries.
Yeah. One of your most recent lives, you talked about becoming who you're meant to be, even when it's scary. What would you say has shifted in your own identity this season?
Girl, how much time do you got? Oh my gosh. I think, you know, you can probably relate when you're changing and you're growing and you're shifting, and then someone asks you like this question, you're kind of like, I don't even know what's happening. Like it's moving so fast. You know what I mean? Like I'm having that moment a little bit, but it's like, yeah, it's an important one to reflect on. I think for me, I'm really recognizing that I want to be the type of leader who can be really truthful and honest and authentic, and how important that is to me. You know, I've always known that, but I think I'm seeing it more and more of just like, yeah, my body gets goosebumps as we're talking about it. It's like, I'm just so tired of all the superficial stuff, you know? I don't ever want to do that. And I'm recognizing a reminder in my field as I'm scaling now to kind of this multiple million a year level and sinking into that. It's like how important this is to place as precedent over any type of financial goal. Like, I don't care if I never hit my goals. I will never sacrifice my authenticity or who I am or what I'm about. Like, you can't take that, you know? So there's that. I think what I'm also realizing is how important the in-person work is to me. Truly, you know, this is like what we talked about, like, what is your business? What do you want to build? And the in-person work really is so potent. You can't get that on a social media platform, you know? And then I think a big thing is my feminine expression is feeling really called to deepen in this season. And that looks like trying to become a painter and seeing what that's like, and, creating new projects in my home, but also like, what am I meant to really create right now in the season of my business? That's what I'm really deepening. And it is potent, and that's really cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you've invited women to soften into their dreams instead of hustling. What are practical ways or daily habits that you would recommend to help shift from striving to embodying?
Yeah. I think there's this interpretation that when we really want something, we have to fight for it. And that is very rooted in our conditioning as women. And so softening can be this really great study where we start to explore the possibility that being in alignment with our nervous system actually creates alignment with wealth as well, right? So for me, practical things, I mean, this is so simple, but one of the things I do every morning, I have a wraparound deck on my home. And when I wake up in the morning, one of the first things I do after I take the dogs out and kind of ground in is sweep that deck. And so what I imagine myself doing, and I do it every morning and I do it every night, is I'm clearing the energy out from the day, or I'm making space for the new day, right? And it's just this really simple practice that allows me to do something physical in my body, but connect to an energetic and spiritual interpretation. And this can be anything in your home that can allow you to soften into the power of your prayer and the power of the body. And that can look like, taking a shower at the end of the day and just clearing out all the energy, and not just getting a shower to get a shower, but like, I'm going to cleanse my mind. I'm going to cleanse my heart. I'm going to wash away all the tension. And we can do those things for ourselves. So taking practices that are everyday rituals and learning how to actually infuse prayer into them is a great way to soften. And what that will do is teach you the power that you have as a woman to really create magic out of the mundane. And that's really how money manifests.
I love that. And we'll be talking about money manifestation probably at another time, because I think we can talk about that forever.
I love that. Yeah, I'm still here for that conversation. Yeah, get me on a part 2. We'll dive in.
So you have a new program, Conscious Creator. Can you tell us about that program, what brought it on, and who is it for?
The Conscious Creator Mastermind is an offering that actually is open doors right now. So it's really beautiful that we're having the opportunity to talk. I have been running masterminds in my business probably since 2018. I've been running group containers for mastermind energy. But Conscious Creator specifically was birthed because I went through a very radical transformation as an entrepreneur, where I abandoned the masculine push, the masculine force, the masculine hustle, and said, I'm never going to build my business from this focal point ever again. Those things can support me. Those things can help me. Those things can create safety, but they are not who I am or what I rely on to build what I've built. And when I switched that way, I recognized that there was a lot of reclaiming of my conscious relationship with entrepreneurship. And a lot of entrepreneurship in this day and age is very unconscious. It's very like, tell me what to do. Tell me what I need to know. Teach me the hashtags, teach me the strategy, give me the steps, and I'll just robotically listen. But being a conscious creator is really about listening to your heart and listening to source and listening to spirit and what you're called to express. And also walking in a good way with your work and doing your inner work to become empowered and holding a safe space for people. And so I wanted to create a container for women to actually go on a journey of becoming conscious creators of their entrepreneurial path. What that has done for entrepreneurs is everything from allowing them to hit their first 6 figures, to scaling to multiple 6 figures, to growing their Instagram from 500 to 40,000. To see the shifts and the changes that happen when we actually reclaim these parts of us is truly amazing. And I think every entrepreneur out there deserves to build a business that feels authentic and alive to them. And that's really what Conscious Creator is all about. It's about teaching people how to build their businesses the way that feels true to them.
I love that, because I think that authenticity and that, being genuine, you can feel that it's an energy. And when you try to build something based on what somebody else has done, or you're trying to copy somebody else, again, people can feel that, and it comes off as, inauthentic.
Oh, truly. And it's sad because people are very good at that.
Yeah.
People are very good at that. Like being in that inauthenticity and that level of like boasting and, look at that woman that you idolize and you just want to be like in her perfect life and her perfect reality, but she's not being real.
Yeah.
And you may feel that because you're very intuitive, but for every one of you, there's 500 other people that are signing up for all of that magic because they're seeing good marketing and not really actually getting medicine, and that's where like I think authenticity is so important, truly. Yeah.
So when you're not teaching or holding space for others, what does healing look like for you behind the scenes?
Behind the scenes, healing for me, I journal a lot, let me just say. I will also be very honest and say that healing for me looks like buying a bunch of books on Amazon that I never actually finish. So let's just not, okay.
Sound like
Guilty.
me.
Yeah. I mean, like that's all of us, we're so excited to learn and grow, and 15 pages in, we're like, I'm good. This is next, So that's a part of it too. For me, a great element of healing is about nature. Okay. So I spend a lot of time as best I can on my land. I spend a lot of time outside. I study a lot in the spirit of Pachamama, right? Mother Gaia, the earth. There's a lot of medicine that she can offer me. And I do travel a lot to do that, like whether that's going to Peru or Costa Rica. But when I'm not facilitating, I'm also spending a lot of time with music. Music is like a really big part of healing for me. And I think I want to say all of these things to be like very simple about it, in the sense that like healing is actually just about returning to these ways in which we know how to connect to ourselves in the deepest way possible. So for you, that could be figure skating, right? For you, it could be knitting, doing watercolors. There's so many different ways of using the body and expression and creativity to return to that part of us. And so for me, that's earth-based medicine and also the creation of the voice.
I love that. So you have openly shared, and, I know that, you have done various types of plant medicine, combo, and things like that. Which one did you try first? What was your experience like? And what keeps you working with those medicines?
My first medicine in a spiritual study in satin setting was actually mushrooms. I was struggling trying to get off of, this was back in 2018, I was trying to get off of Prozac. It was like the last medication I was trying to finally be clear from, but I was experiencing a lot of what I refer to as pharmaceutical damage from taking medications for a long period of time. So I had brain zaps, I had disassociation, I had weird cognitive function issues, and I was really struggling. And a friend of mine said, mushrooms can really help with that, and she just like dropped it there. But for me, as somebody who's very much, I was born and raised to prioritize control. That was very important to me. The idea of having a psychedelic experience and, going into these other realms or seeing different things, that felt extremely terrifying to me. The idea that I would go into some loss of control, and what is that going to do for me? But when you're in a really beautiful set and setting and you have a great facilitator, you're safe to experience all of the emotions that come up because you know that it's a temporary process, right? The lack of safety is created when we feel something will never end. And being in a safe container that is opened and closed reminds you this is not permanent. This is a little portal of time, So that was my first introduction. And I remember I remember, I'm sure many people who have their first medicine experiences will relate to this. I took the mushrooms, and then for the first 30 or 40 minutes, I kept opening my eyes going, am Am I seeing things? Is it working? Am I doing it right? Is that the medicine? No, that's just a glare from the sun looking at that photo right there. Like I was like tripping out, like, is it happening? Is it not happening? And I was just in this kind of an analysis of it. But what did happen for me when the medicine did turn on was this feeling of great amounts of presence and love that I had never experienced in my life before. I was present, I was happy, I was here, I was now. And I remember crying so much after that, because immediately after feeling those feelings, I thought to myself, it's so sad that my human life, I've never been able to feel this, and then I started to grieve, started to feel all that sadness of like, wow, I wasn't even present when I got married. I wasn't even present when this happened or this happened. And I was just like, damn, like, wow, this is what alive is. So, that was a really big wake up for me. And from there, I went to ayahuasca because I knew that this was my path. Like I knew that the earth had answers for me. And continuously over time, what I've noticed is that the more I do this work, the more embodied I become, the more regulated my nervous system is, the more I face my shadows and rewrite them, the more at peace I feel. There's something really beautiful happening. And so that is what brings me back. But when it comes to facilitation, it's watching that in other people, and being able to be like, wow, like, what an honor that I get to hold space for those processes and to prioritize safety. That is, for me, that is everything, because safety is what allows us to connect. And when that's not established in these spaces, it's sad what happens. A lot of people never go back to psychedelics because they had a very unsafe experience in someone's garage in Los Angeles. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not what it's supposed to be. So yeah, ultimately, lots of love is what brings me back.
What would you say is one misconception that people have when it comes to plant medicines?
That I can just do this and everything about my life will change. And while that is true, let me tell you, everything about my life changed. Okay. Like, yes, 100%. The misconception part of it is that you won't have to do any hard work after that. Like, I've had to make some very hard decisions about my life. I had to make some really big changes. I had to reprogram my habits and hold myself accountable and face the things that were not fulfilling me anymore and heal aspects of myself to no longer have those processes continue. That was all integration. And one thing we talk about in our medicine work is the importance of understanding that 30% of the work is the ceremony, but the rest, the 70%, that's what you do when you go home. So that's a really big misconception. And also too, people think like you're going to be like throwing up all the time and that's also not what happens. Like, you're not vomiting the entire time, like I sat in 11 ceremonies before I ever purged that way. 11 ceremonies. And I think in total, after 150 plus, maybe close to more 170 or 180 sits, been doing medicine work for a while, I have purged in a bucket maybe 4 or 5 times. So, it's not always like that for people. And you got to be open to having your authentic experience. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah. Are there different things, intentions, or things that we get from the different medicines? Like, is there something that somebody can get from combo that they won't get from mushrooms, or something that they get from mushrooms and not from ayahuasca and things like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So every plant medicine has a spirit, right? And part of what you're doing when you're sitting with that medicine is understanding that spirit. If you look at like a rose, let's just talk about the plant of a rose, right? She's so beautiful. She's so feminine and she has these thorns, think about that feminine energy, right? Beautiful goddess, no protection, right? That's a very type of frequency. But what if you looked at something that was more playful, like a dandelion or a daffodil, right? There's more of this kind of magnetic, magic, inner child, kind of whimsical feeling to it, right? So the plants all have different studies. Grandmother medicine, ayahuasca, she is a shadow teacher. She's like a stern abuela. She's going to be very firm with you. She's going to show you and say the things that you don't want to look at. And she's going to give you the biggest hug and feed you and make you feel so good. And you just want to snuggle in her arms. You love her so much, right? That's ayahuasca medicine. It's a very feminine medicine. Kambo is the medicine of the warrior. And Kambo is a medicine that is from an amphibian frog that has no predators. So this particular frog is a frequency of nervous system regulation, right? I'm not afraid of anything in this jungle because I got no predators. That's imagine, right? Like imagine that. So when you're studying that medicine, you're understanding the parts of you that are not in a resonance with that, and you're releasing them, right? You're letting those parts of you go. So Kambo is a really beautiful somatic healer. Bufo, which is also an amphibian medicine, it's a toad. Bufo is also referred to as the God molecule, and it is a state of oneness that is not defined by any type of animal totem or any type of personality trait. It is just oneness. And that is what you're studying, is that universal love frequency. So every different ally, Hape, Sananga, Bufo, Iboga, all these different medicines, there is a frequency, and there's also deep-rooted traditions in those energies as well. So it's important when you're called to plant medicine that you do get an education on all these things and just kind of see, like, what am I called to? What am I interested in? And all of them do different things. So part of your question earlier of like creating safety, when I'm working in somebody's field, diagnosing and being aware of like, what is it their body actually needs? And what can I suggest from what I'm witnessing to see how their body, are they curious if I bring that up? Are they interested in that? Is that making them go, oh, tell me more, and just seeing how their body's responding to what we talk about. That's really important too.
I love that. That's amazing stuff. So final question before you share with our listeners where they can find you and connect with you. Your inner child is listening. What do you want her to know about the woman that you've become and the healing that got you here?
I would be like, chill the fuck out for a minute. Like, truly, like, I'd be like, just chill out. Like, girl, chill the fuck out. Like, you're okay. Like, really. Oh, man. So, like, if I had that opportunity, I feel like I have that opportunity a lot because I can connect to her all the time and have these conversations. I feel like the resonance in my heart around this question is really rooted in, I wish she knew this, like I wish she knew this. If she knew this, damn, like that would have provided her so much peace. Because I grew up in a reality where I remember, I don't know if you felt this way, but I remember at a very young age being in my car seat being like, why the fuck did I come here? Like I actually had those moments of confusion of like, these are my parents. This is my why did I pick this? Like I questioned it, because I knew better. I to see my parents not communicating properly, to see the dysfunction, to see like the elements of, distortion that we're so anchored into with all of the adults around me. And if I could have went in and be like, hey, baby girl, yeah, I got you. This is where we're going. She would have been like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? Like, so, there's that. But it's also, it plays out exactly as it should. So I feel like she knew everything she needed to know anyway.
I love that. This has been truly amazing. So share with our audience, our listeners, where they can connect with you and sign up for one or two or all of your programs.
Of course. Yeah, so I really love to hang out on Instagram at Lauren of Love. That is my home base. I also have a podcast and a new podcast coming out called Spirit Said to Me, which is going to be releasing probably by the end of 2026. Or no, it'll be the end of 2025 or the beginning of 2026. So stick around. But also everything that is available that I offer in terms of support, whether it is our plant medicine retreats or the Heal program or anything we talked about, you can go to laurenoflove.com and all of the details are there. So there is also a free guide in my library called Plant Medicine 101 that's really beautiful. And that teaches you how to get support with plant diets at home, like things like rose that we talked about. So all of that is on laurenoflove.com in the freebie section.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Maryann. And thank you guys for listening.
If you loved this episode, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a sister who needs it and leave a review so more women can find their way to healing. And remember, your healing is your responsibility, but you don't have to do it alone. Follow me on social media at Maryann Rivera Dannert and be sure to visit MaryannRiveraDannert.com to access free resources, coaching programs, and learn more about the events at the Healing Her Studio in Rochester, New York. Until next time, keep healing, keep rising, and always honor the woman you're becoming. This is Healing Her Within, and girl, we are just getting started.